Hello, Diablo 2 fanatics and cursed minions. Ismail Vileshare here with my take on how Project Diablo 2 handles and expands bossing. So in this video, we'll be talking a little bit about. We'll start with a brief history of bossing in D2. Then we'll get into the changes and additions specific to this mod. Then we'll cover my personal experience in Season 11, going through these bosses and trying to do them for the first time. And then finally we'll go over what does and doesn't work for me about bossing in this mod. A brief history of bossing in D2. So, killing bosses has always been a thing in Diablo 2, going back to 2000. Doing Chaos Sanctuary, LOD came out, doing World Stone, doing the waves for XP, and just like teleporting to Mephisto or Andariel in Nightmare or Hell and killing them many times very quickly on repeat to get cool gear. But these were sort of how bossing started in the Diablo franchise. And people did Pindleskin was another non-act boss that, good to farm to get, experience or gear very quickly as well. He had a big drop table, amount of things he could drop for how quick and easy he was to get to. But then it was in October 2003 that Diablo Clone was released as like the first sort of like additional endgame boss, specifically endgame boss. Yeah, it was patch 1.10, I believe. And so he would show up on the map once enough Stones of Jordan on the server were sold, because those were very popularly hacked items at the time, duped items at the time, and he would replace a super unique mob, I believe, and so you would. He would be like a big Diablo. He did the kind of Diablo kinds of things, a lot of lightning, fire, and physical damage. So if you could mitigate those, and on the defensive layer, and on the offensive layer, if you had prevent monster heal, that helped a lot with him because he had a big health pool. Smite Paladin. This was like the beginning of the rise of the Smite Paladin as a dedicated bosser, as far as I can recall. I don't think Smite was big before him. And, or poison damage, in the meteor field. You could use something like that, but like the idea was you stop his huge life pool from regenning, and then you deal a bunch of damage to him to kill him. You could do it with something like Blizzard, if you had a prevent monster heal bow and were just patient enough to get the hit on him. But this was like the beginning of like Smite Paladin or other melee classes with like open wounds, crushing blow, to help get that big amounts of health that he would have down faster. And then came Uber Tristram in the, I guess 2 Octobers later, in 2005, with patch 1.11 in LOD. And for that, you'd farm the keys, so it added Countess Summoner and Nithalak as, like, important the bosses to farm, basically. Like, pre-bosses, really. And then you'd get the 3 sets of keys. You would open 3 portals in slightly different spots in the same game. And then there were 3 mini-bosses. Duriel with the Cold Aura. Izual with like Act 4 and 5 ads that could be a little much, a little bit to consider, to watch out for. And then Lilith in this sort of like Act 1 area. And she was like Andariel on steroids, with doing a bunch of poison and physical damage, and the mobs around her could amp you, so that could be a really scary one. Uh, but they'd each drop an organ. You'd take the organs, cube them up, and you'd get a portal to Uber Tristram, where Uber Ball, Mephisto, and Diablo were. Generally, you'd pull Mephisto away from the others. He's fast and deadly. He had this big conviction aura, so you could either have a higher level conviction aura or way overcap your reses. Especially, I believe lightning was by far the most deadly. And ideally get some lightning absorb. And you just womp him out, and yeah, you'd basically try and separate him out and beat him. So against them, unlike Dclone, prevent monster heal no longer worked. The things that did work on him and were quite popular were like life tap, crushing blow, open wounds. And these kind of things were how people would fight him and kill him. Yeah, originally I believe Smiter Paladin was far and away the easiest. In D2R, there's been a slight expansion of the classes that can pretty handily take them out. Like, you can do it on a Zon, you can do it on a Fury Druid, or like a Frenzy Barb. You can do it on a, what is that assassin? On the Mosaic Assassin, and do it really fast. I believe Mosaic Assassin has the record right now. Is it Lucky who has that? But in any case, it's Uber Tristram has been sort of the biggest challenge, biggest reward. Not to say that Dclone has no reward. Annie's and Torches, the respective rewards for killing Dclone and Uber Tristram. Both extremely powerful items, and at the right time in a ladder season, extremely valuable items. And in solo self-found, of course, extremely valuable items. So in D2 Resurrected, it was slightly expanded who could do the the endgame bosses, the Uber Tristram, Dclone, with items, you've got these items like the Harmony Bow, you've got you've got more rune words, you've got just more methods slightly of getting power. You could break the immunities on some of the ads that the Uber Tristram bosses would summon with the new 2.4, the immunity break and charms. So yeah, it did expand who could do them without fundamentally changing the contours of the fight. So, like, bossing sort of became like a small niche within Diablo 2. Which brings us to our next topic, like the changes in bossing in Project Diablo 2. So, PD2 has kind of expanded the role and rewards of bossing into like the second pillar of endgame after mapping, with perhaps speeding through LOD content ever faster as like a third endgame pillar. So PD2 has expanded the number of bosses and the mechanics of those bosses and the like number and types of skills and builds you can use to have a reasonable shot at these bosses. As well as like the difficulty spread of the bosses. So Uber Tristram was redone a bit to reduce the importance of open wounds and crushing blow, and increase the importance of just regular damage, and somehow even more than in D2R and LOD, increase the importance of overstacking res, believe it or not. Which, if you've done it in those, you know overstacking res was already quite important for Uber Tristram. Diablo Clone got his own whole fight, and it's quite involved. It has phases and mechanics to it. There's a part where you have to hide behind a pillar, or you won't be able to tank the attacks he does. He summons waves of skeletons. There's a lot of stuff going on in the fight, and he becomes invulnerable until you kill the skeletons. Like there's a lot happening in that fight. And then there's one other fight that is basically added as a conversion of LOD content or D2R content into like a boss fight, and it's the Uber Ancients, who are like a quick but intense fight, where you can pick how many of them you fight at once to dial up and down the difficulty. All the other boss fights, you can sort of like, you can recube the item you use to go to the boss to cycle between tiers 0, 1, and 2. And the difficulty jumps are very significant, I'll say. Having attempted T1 on my mapping Phoenix Strikes in, you can certainly feel the difference. But they've also added a couple of other endgame bosses. Now we've got Lucion, who's like a lightning guy. He has some mechanics, not as many as Dclone, but he does have waves, he has some mechanics, and as a reward for killing him, you get to basically give your amulet a second slam, or give an amulet a second slam. And then there is also Rathma, who I've yet to try, who is a multi-phase fight that involves Mendel. It involves poison damage, magic damage, which is notoriously the hardest damage to mitigate. It involves multiple waves. It involves managing like antidote potions. My flex goal for the season on the assassin is to do that fight at tier 0. But yeah, so there's a lot of potential bossing content. Oh, and by doing that fight, I believe you can upgrade, or try to upgrade, obviously there's a chance it'll brick, an Annihilus charm. So, my journey into the Ubers, well, into the bosses, in this mod, started with Uber Tristram. It definitely was not quick the first couple of times, but it worked. I believe the first time, so you get 3 portals to do Uber Tristram. I ended up using all three portals my first time because I was just going through rejuve so quickly. This mod does nerf life tap to the point, both sources and its duration on bosses to the point where it's not mega useful, and most people just bring in a lot of juves to do against bosses. So I did that, and I ended up spending all my rejuves and using all three portals to defeat the bosses the first time. Um, so after my first Uber Tristram, I did the Uber Ancients, which also quite a bracing fight. Uh, is it Modoc the Mad, the one who throws, does like a lot of damage. Feels like it's magic damage too. Some of it feels very tough to tank through. So I eventually, after I have died to them a couple times. I think they're actually the deadliest boss I've done. It's just you get the mats for them so quickly um, that you can do them much more quickly. Like while mapping, you acquire mats for them quite quickly, as opposed to the other bosses. You don't have to go out of your way to get the mats. And Uber Ancient's fight is quite quick, so you can do like 5 fights in under an hour, even if you're picking all this junk they drop out of curiosity. Because you want that cool, whatever, rare um, chest piece or crossbow or thrown weapon. Um, but yeah, so the Uber Ancients, very quick and intense fight, very cool. Definitely worth stacking a lot of physical damage reduction and health for them. Just pure health, which I think will be my play for going after Rathma Mendeln when I go for it. But I'm not there yet, so we'll see. So yeah, the Uber Ancients did two more Uber Tristrams and maybe like a dozen Uber Ancients before doing Diablo-Clone. The real, who's a real fight with mechanics and everything in this mod. Uh, had to build up a bunch of fire res, like max fire res, while keeping my physical damage reduction high. Uh, Theoretically, you could also get more lightning res for the fight if you want. A lot of people don't and just dodge the hose. He's got the lightning hose, or just rely on their physical block for the hose for whatever bits of it they're gonna tank. And the fire damage is the most dangerous, uh, or just the skeletons in the ads phase. But yeah, we managed to do that. Tried it again on tier 1. Did not go so well. That was not a success. This season, I'm not going to be pushing to try and do everything on tier 1 or tier 2. Maybe next season. But this season, my goals, I'll be happy to just beat everything on tier 0. Uh, and then after a couple more runs of everything, we went and tried Lucion. And stay tuned to the end to see, towards the end to see what the rewards for that were. Because we did manage to defeat Lucion. So quite a, it's an intense fight. Not as intense as Dclone, but it's no joke. So some of the pros and cons then of the bossing system in the mod. Some of the main the biggest pro to me is that the bossing system as it currently exists gives a chance for very different skills to shine. So for instance, in mapping, say like a vengeance paladin, or a sacrifice paladin is the most like efficient big AoE build. But then you've got charge. You can make a charge paladin shine for bossing in a way that those other types of paladins won't. That's cool. It's a place for Jab Amazon, Maul Bear, or a bunch of multiple shapeshifter builds, like that weird Barbarian Totem and Berserk. There's a bunch of skills and builds whose utility really comes out through bossing. So it's like is well integrated into the mod goal of having basically every skill be cool and usable. I like that. Um, and kind of to add to that, the three-tier slider system that exists for, most of the bosses, that exists for Dclone, Lucion, and Rathma. I think it's a good balance of approachable at tier 0 and challenging at tier 2. Obviously, I haven't uh, invested a bunch of resources into like a perfectly built bosser to trivialize tier 0. Just been doing it on my on my mapper Phoenix Strikes in, and it's been really fun like that. I think next season, or perhaps with my next thing, which will be an SSF journey, I may see what happens if I end up with some really good bossing gear. Like, that would be interesting. Uh, but for the moment, I'm happy to just do all the bosses at tier 0, with the exception of the Nightmare Ancients, which you can do them summoning all 3, and it's not mega crazy once you're able to get some high physical damage reduction and health and Merc that can survive a little bit. Uh, Other things about that I really do like. There's more itemization puzzles, which, especially in ladder, feel really interesting. Uh, you can sell a T God's belt always. You can always you can almost always sell off some items that have decent poison length reduction for the Rathma fight. Like max fire res is desirable. It widens the market for desired goods on trade. Uh, which is cool. That just means more interesting things, more stuff to chase for if you'd like to, more stuff to trade off if you don't care. Which gets into where I think the bossing system shines the most. I think it is at ladder, particularly, and now that we're a couple months into the ladder, I can say, the ladder itself functions best in the first like month and a half, when there's a lot of people on trading and such. And then after that, it does get a little bit quieter. Uh, but like the bossing system works really well on the ladder, and I'm really curious to see how it will go on SSF. I'm almost there. My Vengeance Paladin is able to do blue tier 3 maps, but not really yellow tier 3 maps yet, so hopefully that content will be coming up, and I'll have some on that. Uh, but yeah, the fact that you can opt in or out of bossing in ladder is great. If you get the trade materials, the bossing materials, and you don't want to do them, you can trade them off. You can get a cheap torch and Annie. Bad ones are cheap, even early on in the season, because there are gonna be people who are gonna be building builds to do that in particular. They'll specialize in it, and they'll get a lot of bad rolls as well as the good rolls where they're really making their money off of. So that's absolutely well set up. So what are the cons to the bossing system? Uh, there's a couple. One would be, and this may be more on the subjective side, but I think that some of the boss materials to get into the boss fights have a bit low of a drop rate. Um, Especially some of the materials that can only come from map events or that can only come from LOD content rather than maps. I think those should be buffed a little bit drop rate wise. Um, Kind of in along the same regards, I think it would be cool if some of the T0 bosses, maybe not the ancients, but the other, like the three, besides Uber Tristram, uh, if they got three portals like Uber Tristram does. Um, I don't think it would take anything from the fights really, and it would just put the tier 0 fights in a little bit of a nicer spot, in my opinion. Um, and the last thing, like when I was fighting, I believe it was so some of the hitboxes I feel like and some of the visuals uh, are a little unforgiving. Some of the invisible fire pools for Dclone, and some of the getting clipped by the lightning by Lucion felt just a little bit like the hitboxes are a little wild, a little brutal. It's definitely doable. It's definitely survivable. You can itemize it, minimize it. You can tank it, but could be fixed, could be improved. So, in conclusion, I think the PD2 bossing system is cool. It's not better than mapping, or even, in my opinion, as engaging as mapping. But it does fit well with mapping and LOD content, like as a holistic, bigger, more interesting and engaging endgame for the game, and a way to try out new builds and skills and such. Um, so that's kind of my take on bossing. Stay tuned for next time, where we'll be going into either my SSF journey in PD2, or if I manage it, taking out the last of the bosses, tier 0, Rathma and Mendel.